Why don't we talk up the Hogs here at the Voice of College Football? We got Ty Hudson on the line from Pig Trail Network to help us break it all down. Spring practice starts on March 13th. We're just a couple weeks away, so we want to get everyone set. We're going to go position by position. Ty, how's it going?
Yo, Mark, how you doing, man?
I'm good. What you been up to?
You know, living the dream, keeping up with I know we're going to talk football, but keeping up with basketball and baseball just started, obviously, in college. Not so much in MLB, but in college, so around here, when basketball's rolling and baseball season comes around, Fayetteville's a special place.
All right. How about spring football? We can mix that in there, too.
Oh, spring football is going to be huge. Some changes this year. Some disappointing changes, but it is what it is. But that's gonna be special. March 13th is gonna be pretty cool. Of course, that lands on a Sunday, but Hog fans are, they're already. I'm getting hit up a lot for any kind of information that I have. I say a lot, like maybe a couple of DMs a week about some random spring camp question, but. The excitement, it's definitely in the air, especially coming off 9-4. It's you can feel it when you drive into Fayetteville. You just feel it, Mark. The electricity is visible. You can see it. It's magical.
When you say disappointing, no spring game. That's what you're alluding to.
Yeah, no official red-white scrimmage, which I believe dates back like 50 years. And I've only missed myself, of course, born and raised in Fayetteville, and now I live in Springdale. I've only missed, I think, a couple of actual red-white scrimmages. I've in fact, last couple of years, I've gone to, if they have more than one open scrimmage, I go to it. And the red-white scrimmage, to me, it's more, they usually have the festivities, Razor Fest outside, before kickoff. I don't think they did that last year, but I don't go there for all the all that. I go there just to see the scrimmage, considering what I do here on YouTube with the show and everything covering the Razorbacks, but also just because long before that, it's just kind of something you do in Fayetteville. You go and you watch the red-white scrimmage. So for the first time, and I want to say it's 50 years if that's been going on, they won't have an official red-white scrimmage.
Folks, head on over to Pig Trail Network. Track Ty and everything that he does covering the Hogs, football, baseball, and basketball. And again, baseball's getting started up. It's one of the best programs in the country. And of course, it's March Madness just days away. All right. That quarterback, KJ Jefferson, he had a pretty darn good season this past year.
Yeah, a special year, and got better as the year went on. That's what's wild is, you wouldn't, the way he started out against Rice wasn't that great. Then we kind of saw bits and pieces of what he could do against Texas, and then eventually A&M. Of course, he would end up sitting the second half because of, I say sitting, he was out because of an injury, and we got to see Malik Hornsby. But yeah, KJ progressed and evolved as the season went on, and it was really special. I didn't know what to expect out of him, and it's pretty clear that he's one of the better dual threat quarterbacks, not just in the SEC West, but in all the SEC, which is saying something.
All right. So how can he get better?
I don't know. Maybe it's Kendall Briles opening things up from a passing standpoint on offense. I think he, when you talk about like the touch on the ball, his accuracy, all that stuff got better as the year went on. I think his decision-making – oh, sorry, getting ESPN alerts here. Thought I had my phone on silent. But you saw him make strides in the passing game, got better, got more accurate. You could see he was a little bit more confident in throwing the ball. Great deep ball, on target with the deep ball throws. I think he was one of the more accurate quarterbacks in the SEC and maybe even in the entire country on throws beyond, I think, 25 yards. He was one of the more accurate quarterbacks. He's kind of got everything you want out of a quarterback that runs the RPO or runs the veer and shoot, which is what Kendall Briles runs here. He's kind of the complete package. I don't know. That's a good question. I haven't really thought a lot about that, like what he could really improve on. Maybe maybe be a little bit more patient going through his reads on actual design pass plays. I'm not talking about the RPO stuff. They do every once in a while. They will just straight up run a 3-4 wide set, and they'll throw the ball downfield. And sometimes what I witnessed him doing was he would only go through his first read. If Burks wasn't open, he would look him down a little bit, then tuck the ball and try to run. Wouldn't actually try to go through all of his reads. Sometimes that was because, the offensive line was starting to collapse. His pocket was starting to collapse around him, and it was understandable. Other times, not so much. He would just tuck it and run. But at the same time, Mark, that's what makes him special, is his ability to tuck the ball and run folks over. That's what he does. So, yeah, I don't know. We'll as we get closer and closer to spring, and as we get through spring camp, maybe I'll have a better answer for you there. I don't really know what it is that he needs to improve on necessarily. I'm sure there's something out there. You've had Stephen Hamner on your show before, QB Spotlight. I guarantee you he'd probably have a pretty good list of things that he needs to improve on.
So, Ty, this spring session, as it pertains to the quarterback position, is going to be more about who's going to back him up in that battle. Who are those candidates? This
is the battle that I think everybody's kind of waiting for, because Malik Hornsby, big time 4-star prospect out of high school, a guy that everyone thought might even take KJ's job this year. Like, that was some of the rhetoric. And I'm not even going to lie. I said, after spring camp, I said, I wonder how tight KJ's leash is, not so much because of what he does or doesn't do or what his skill set is. More so, it was about what Malik Hornsby's skill set was and how well it should fit in this veer and shoot offense with his kind of speed. I mean, Mark, we're talking about a guy that's rumored to be the fastest player on this team, and they have some freaking speed on this roster. And for that to be the case, you're talking about someone who's probably high to mid 4.3, 40 range speed. That's ridiculous for a quarterback. If you watch him play, if you go back and watch some of his highlights, not that he has a lot, but when he takes off and runs, he covers 10 yards in an instant. Like, he's quick. There's no doubt about that. And sometimes quarterbacks just look a lot faster because, they've got some linebacker or DN trying to chase them down and they pull away, whatever. And maybe that's the case. But I think he is probably one of the top 5 fastest guys on this roster. And we thought for sure we were going to see him a lot more than what we actually did. And the role he settled into was he was just the QB2, and that's it. Like, KJ just clearly took off with the job. He hit the portal not long ago, and I think you and I talked about that here. He hit the portal, and it didn't shock anybody, because the rumors were that Kade Renfro and Lukas Coley were both on his heels. There was even rumors floating around that maybe they asked him to move positions, to maybe move to wide receiver or something. And so he hits the portal. Didn't shock anybody. He pulls his name out of the portal. So now that's got everyone wondering. Everyone's, what do we got going on at the QB2 spot here? What's this battle going to look like? That's what I'm going to be focused on in the spring. And I think that's going to come down between him, who's, Hornsby's 6'1", 6'2", about $190, soaking wet. Okay. The guys behind him now, Kade Renfro he's not going to play at all. He tore his ACL getting ready for Penn State, if I remember correctly. So he's going to be out for a while. Definitely will not be a participant in spring camp. So the other guy is Lukas Coley, who I think ESPN was the only site to give him 4 stars. In fact, I think they had him tagged as a top 10 dual threat quarterback, if I remember right. But Lukas Coley is a little bit bigger. I mean, you're talking about a guy that's about 6'2", 6'2 plus, about 215, somewhere between 215, 220, pretty good arm. Has looked good in the little bits that we've seen him, although obviously he's not, we haven't seen him much on the field in actual live play. But that's the battle. It's going to be between Lukas Coley and Malik Hornsby. I'm not buying in right now. I think all the fluff is exactly that about Malik Hornsby moving positions, because I seem to remember his recruiting looking something like other teams were interested in him playing other positions, and Arkansas was, and not that Arkansas was the only team offering him as a dual threat quarterback. Plenty of them were, make no mistake about it. But that was one of the selling points. That, and Kendall Browse had been an active recruiter of his for ever since he was like in 9th grade. So those things sold him here. So I don't know that I buy that he's going to turn around about face and all of a sudden go play wide receiver here. And then you have Lukas Coley as your 2 guy. Could be something discussed something to keep an eye on. I don't think it's going to be the case, but anything could happen there. But yeah, Coley and Hornsby is going to be the battle. And I think to me, that's more interesting than just about any other battle on the field right now on either side of the ball.
Got Ty Hudson on the line. Pig Trail Network. Head on over there for your Arkansas football, basketball, baseball coverage. Ty's going to break down offensive positions across the board, and we'll reel him back here in the next few weeks for a little defensive look. Running back. So Treylon Smith at one point seemed to be, correct me if I'm wrong, the guy, or at least in the lead. He heads off to TCU. Maybe there was too much competition. I don't know what the deal was there. But Dominic Johnson and Raheem Sanders bring back quite a bit of productivity.
They're loaded here. And I haven't felt this good about what they have going on in the backfield since maybe Bielema year 2, year 3. And, back then you had Alex Collins, Jonathan Williams, Raleigh Williams. I mean, they were stacked in the backfield. And now you're looking at what they have to offer, and it's Dominic Johnson, a 6'1", 240-pound bowling ball who doesn't move like he's 6'1", 240. He moves like he's 5'10", $190. He moves really well with that frame. Raheem Sanders, 6'2", 220, another kind of a heavy running back, but with plenty of burst. A guy that when he has the ball in his hands, he's a little shaky. Like, if you watch him run, he doesn't look like a natural running back. He actually played wide receiver in high school. I think he mixed it up a little bit, wide receiver and running back, but primarily a wide out. And again, you talk about rumor mill, guys moving around. There's a rumor that Sanders may get moved back out to wide out, but I don't know if there's anything to it right now. I've not heard that. But I never rule everything out. I'll tell you that much. But Sanders he's just a beast. Again, 6'2", 225, somewhere in there. He'll be a sophomore. AJ Green, someone who I thought it wouldn't have shocked me if he hit the portal simply because you had Treylon up until he hit the portal. You had Treylon, you had Dominic, you had Raheem, a.k.a. Rocket Sanders. Kind of wouldn't surprise me if he had hit the portal. And again, he still could. I mean, you can all the way up until like June 1st, I think it is, if you want to be eligible for the for fall football. But AJ Green might be the fastest of this bunch. He's the track guy. In fact, he wasn't here last year for spring because of track. A similar situation going on with another 4-star in this class, and Isaiah Centenia. He's got track, so he's not going to be on campus for spring camp. A little disappointed in that, not going to lie. I wish him the best. I know track is life and all that, but, man, I'd love to see him this spring and start getting notes about what he's doing in spring camp. But AJ will obviously be here for this one, AJ Green. So 5'11", about $195. Dude is fast. Probably one of those guys you talk about, one of the 5 fastest players on the roster. And then they're bringing in guys like James Joyner, Rashad Dubian. If they don't move Dubian, I've heard he could actually play a couple of different positions. And then they have Javion Hunt. Those are all guys that are 5'10", 6 foot, 210, which is what Joyner is. And Hunt, who's actually a redshirt freshman, who's 6 foot, 205. They're loaded back there, Mark. I mean, it's just kind of ridiculous. Those names I just listed off, though, the first 3, Dominic Johnson, Raheem Sanders, and AJ Green, all capable of, if not being starters in the SEC, are capable of being like change of pace kind of backs in other systems in this offense. That's how good this backfield, it's how good they look at the moment. I think they are that good. We'll get a bigger dose of that come spring camp.
AJ Green got the most work out of those guys out of that bunch. 227 yards on the ground, 4.8 per carry, a touchdown, and 7 catches out of the backfield. We got Ty Hudson on the line from Pig Trail Network. Got to join him right here on YouTube, tracking the Hogs in all 3 major sports and maybe more than that. I don't know. All right, Ty, unless you're hiding somebody, I'm guessing there's no one person that's going to replace Treylon Burks.
Yeah, they don't have another Burks. I mean, nobody does. I don't know that anybody in the country has a Treylon Burks. 6'3", 200, and looks like 245 when you see him kind of flex and do his thing. That dude is a monster. They've compared him to guys like DK Metcalf and so on and so forth. Maybe that's what he is. I don't know. I'm excited to see what he does in the combine if he runs his 40. But here's the thing. Do they have a Treylon Burks? No. Does that mean they don't have anybody who can replicate that kind of production? I think they do. I think they have a couple of guys that are capable of doing that. And obviously the guy that stands out, you've got the OU transfer in Hazelwood. That's someone you're going to want to keep an eye on, right? I mean, without a doubt, former 5-star, big-time player, 6'3", 205, big body, big frame, good catch radius. I watched quite a bit of his – I watched some of his high school film, and I watched his, when he was at OU. Of course, he ran into some injuries along the way, and I get OU fans who are like, yeah, he's great, good hands and everything, but he's injury-prone, so just keep a lookout for that. I think he only had, as far as I know, he only had the one injury at Oklahoma. I could be wrong, but I like him. I like him a lot. Catron Jackson, who, last year, really highly rated 4-star wideout. I say really highly. I don't know, 0.9 for the the people who keep up with that. He's probably like a 0.90 4-star on 247, but someone who was highly sought after. In fact, Texas wanted him pretty bad, and they went after him pretty hardcore. He picked the Hogs. Didn't really have as productive of a year as he probably would have liked to have had, but could be someone who maybe he doesn't have the Treylon Burks kind of numbers, but could be a big piece of this offense. And then, of course, Warren Thompson, another 6'3", another big, long-framed guy. I think we're kind of sensing a theme here with Kendall Browse. He likes these 6'2", 6'3" wideouts, these guys with wide catch radiuses and long arms, long bodies. And that's exactly what Warren Thompson is. In fact, Warren Thompson's actually, when you talk about recruited out of high school, someone will have to correct me if I'm wrong, he would be the second highest rated player in the Razorback receiving room in terms of actual rating out of high school, behind only Hazelwood. Burks was a 4-star. Of course, he's no longer here. Burks was a highly rated 4-star as well. So he's in that. I think he's in that category, and I think his ceiling is really high. I like Warren Thompson a lot. They've also got Jaden Wilson, incoming freshman receivers, Quincy McAdoo, and of course, someone I just mentioned, Isaiah Centenia, who's a track star up here in Fayetteville. Crawford. The list just kind of goes on. They're in pretty good shape there. John David White did enter the portal, but he's not anyone I thought was going to have any great amount of production this year for him. He was really good last year in camp, but never did anything beyond that on the field.
Got Ty Hudson on the line talking up the Hogs. We always enjoy the conversation with Ty when we can track him down, because he's working hard all the time for you Hogs fans. So football, baseball, basketball, Arkansas sports needs right there, Pig Trail Network. So join him right here on YouTube. Tight end, where do we stack up there? Did they use a tight end much? Who would that guy be?
They do. As the year went on, we saw them target Blake Kern more and more. Trey Knox, who 4-star wideout out of Tennessee. Again, a guy who his freshman year came here and looked like he was going to be what Burks would eventually become. Like, he was going to be your star. He was going to be the guy. And then his sophomore year, he kind of disappeared. Then last year, he kind of disappeared. And then they moved him to tight end. I don't remember at what point. I want to say going in pretty early, week 4, week 5, somewhere in there. They move him to tight end. Now, he actually asked to do that, and which is something that kind of surprised me a little bit. But he asked, look, I want to help any way I can. Move me to tight end. I think I could do well there. And he eventually did pretty well. And as the year went on, he was targeted more and more often. I had a couple of key drops in some games this year, but someone who he's got the frame for it. Mark, 6'5", about 230. He's going to have to put on some more weight if you're going to be a tight end in this league and in this offense. They do use a tight end quite a bit, whether it's blocking or we've seen at times where they'll target a tight end in his offense, 6-7 times in a game. So it may be different tight ends, but they'll target the position. You've got him. You've got Hudson Henry, who's 6'5", 255. He'll be going into his redshirt junior year, if I'm not mistaken. Hasn't really had a lot of success here. Has struggled staying healthy. If he has a year where he doesn't run into many injury issues, and again, that is a very abused position. They take a lot of hits at that spot. If he could stay healthy, he could have a pretty productive year, but we've just not seen it out of him. And then behind those two, you've got a lot of question marks. Landon Rogers, a former quarterback down in Little Rock, they moved him to tight end. He was 6'4", like 210. I'm not sure where he's at now. I saw a photo of him actually not long ago. He looks absolutely ripped. And then behind him, Aaron Outley, a redshirt freshman, 6'4", 255, whose high school film is actually pretty fun to watch. He moves pretty well with that big frame, with that 6'4", 255 frame. But yeah, a lot of question marks here, Mark. Tight end spot is going to be another position you want to keep an eye on, just as far as the development of those guys as we move through spring camp and get ready for summer workouts and then fall camp.
Hudson Henry caught 4 balls last year, and he's got a lot to live up to as well.
Yeah, his big brother in the NFL, who when he's healthy, one of the top 8 tight ends in the NFL when he's healthy, and but yeah, he's got some big shoes to fill and a big name to live up to with the generations of Henrys in the Razorback locker rooms.
Folks, we ask that you would like the video. You're right here. You enjoy it. It's just a click. Like the video, share the videos out on social media, subscribe right here at the Voice of College Football, and get on over to Pig Trail Network and get Ty's full array of content there. Football, baseball, and basketball, talking Hogs. All right, the offensive line is obviously near and dear to the heart of Sam Pittman. I came across some numbers today that I thought were pretty impressive. One being that there are 16 scholarship players at offensive line on the roster, and 9 of them were rated as 4 stars by at least one service. And also that they've bulked up this offensive line. It's per man 23 pounds heavier this past season in 2021 than it was when Sam Pittman arrived in 2019.
Yeah, they'll get heavier too. I mean, the expectation is they're still gonna add the weight. A lot of starters back, a lot of guys that either rotated or started coming back this year. Question marks at the left tackle spot, but I think they'll be all right there. Yeah, that shouldn't shock anybody. And of course I know it doesn't you, Mark, considering you know all about Sam Pittman and his background as an offensive line coach. He's living up to that reputation. The offensive line last year, just so much better than what we've seen the last 4 years, and they're only going to get better up front. And that they're bringing back Ricky Stromberg, who's a potential, could be a late first round pick, maybe a second round kind of caliber. When you talk about his ceiling as a player, he's absolutely someone who could find himself. If he has a good enough year, if he builds on what he's accomplished these last 2-3 seasons, he's been a starter since a freshman. He's got the experience, he's got the awareness, the know-how, the knowledge, and he's got the raw talent. He's difficult to deal with if you're a defensive lineman. He's not someone who gives up much. He doesn't give up a lot of ground. Powerful center for them, and it was huge for him to come back because he had considered going to the NFL, and as I was told, he seriously considered it. I don't know where he would have gone this year. I don't think he would have been a first round or second round pick this year, but he's going to get the opportunity to build on what he did last year. Yeah, they're bringing back a lot of talent. The guys they brought in with this last class are both expected to be in the mix somewhere along the offensive line. They're headed in a great direction on the offensive line. I feel really confident. In fact, I would argue that's their most loaded position. And as you pointed out, a lot of 4 stars, depending on what recruiting site you give the most credibility to. Seems like just about everyone has quite a few 4 stars on this offensive line. And even the guys that weren't 4 stars, could also make a splash. There's a couple of guys there that weren't as highly rated out of high school, but could absolutely push some folks around up there on the offensive line, on the line of scrimmage for the Hogs.
The 2nd, 3rd, and 4th rated players in this class of 2022 are all offensive linemen. Tackle Andrew Chamblee, 23rd rated tackle in the nation, 6'7", 305. Emarion Harris, 6'7", 370 at offensive tackle as well, out of Little Rock, and out of Memphis, Patrick Kutos, interior offensive lineman, guard, center. So yeah, they could get some immediate help if they need it, but those guys may also have the luxury just to kind of kick back and develop for a year before they're needed.
Yeah, and Patrick Kutos, who I think Arkansas was one of the first schools to offer him to actually play offensive line. He was actually a defensive lineman throughout most of his recruiting process, And he played obviously both sides of the line of scrimmage. And Sam Pittman and that staff, they all recognize, wait a minute, he's actually a pretty damn good offensive lineman. He's a 0.89 4-star composite on 247 as an offensive lineman or as a defensive lineman, but he's highly thought of as an offensive lineman. So I think he's a 4-star on both sides of the ball. What you have here really is a 4-star athlete who happens to play on the offensive line or on the line of scrimmage. Again, good size, 6'6", 303. I don't know what they're planning with him, if they're going to move him at right tackle. They like those lengthy guards, too. They like those guys that are 6'6", 6'7" at guard. We've seen them move some guys around a little bit. In fact, Tykees Crawford, they moved around, who's a 4-star who actually was committed to Arkansas out of high school. Then he ended up having to go to Charlotte for a year, and then he's back. They moved him around. And that was another question, like, what do they do with Dalton Wagner if he leaves? Wagner's coming back. And Wagner, outside of getting lost on the snap counts, that's his only weakness, I would argue, as a returning starter on this offensive line. He's a solid blocker for them. So now it's like, what do we do with these other, Tykees Crawford? I think the expectations were, especially now that Ty Clary's gone, another former Fayetteville Bulldog, he's gone. So now that means we're going to have Crawford step up at the right tackle spot because Clary had also shared some time at that position. But then they got the kind of surprising announcement that Dalton Wagner was going to come back. Not that he was going to go pro, but maybe he might just hang up his cleats because he's been here a while. He's dealt with some injuries. So, yeah, they're floated up, man. I mean, the talent in that room probably matches the receiver room in terms of star power. It's pretty impressive. And, again, not shocking considering Sam Pittman being your head coach.
We always get good stuff out of Ty Hudson. You can track all of his work, Pig Trail Network, right here on YouTube. And there, as you see right there on the banner on Twitter, at Ty Hudson 83. Ty, did we miss anything on the offense?
I don't think so. There's interesting battles. I mean, I know people really want me to go in on what they do about Burks, like who's really, like, what's going on there. And I think we did a pretty good job breaking that down. There's going to be, again, you're not going to have Isaiah Centennial in spring camp, but you are going to have Quincy McAdoo. You're going to have Warren Thompson back at that position. They're set up really to be able to, if they have to, it's going to be a production by committee. It maybe one guy doesn't have 60 plus catches like Burks did, but you have, Warren Thompson with 40 or whatever, and maybe Catron Jackson with 35, 40 catches, whatever. So maybe we see a little bit more of a different receivers stepping up, and you see a more different guys with better numbers this year. More guys, instead of a couple of guys with 20 grabs and one player with almost 70 catches. Instead, you'll see that kind of dispersed a little bit differently. So I think it's going to be receivers by committee, if that kind of makes sense. Like what you have with running backs. A lot of offenses these days, it's running back by committee. It's different. You got your change of pace back and this and that, and you're able to kind of, dull out the carries a little bit differently. I think you're going to see something similar with the receivers and how those guys fluctuate. Offensive line, again, like I said, stacked. Tight end is my biggest question mark on offense. A lot of work, at that position. You're trying to mold a couple of guys into tight ends over there with a former quarterback and of course Trey Knox, who's got a head start because he played tight end last year a little bit, well, actually quite a bit. So, but it's still kind of a work in progress at the tight end spot. There are some, again, a little bit of concern about maybe where Malik Hornsby's at in his development stage. Is he a little bit behind where KJ Jefferson was as a redshirt freshman? Yeah, I think he is. So we'll keep an eye on his development as well, and kind of what's going on in the quarterback room moving forward.
March 13, day one in Fayetteville for the Hogs to get back together and try to improve on 9-4. Yes, Ty, we always appreciate you stopping by. We will let you get back to hoops and hardball there with the Hogs.
Good times. Good time right now to be a Razorback sports fan. I'm just saying, Mark. Top 5 in baseball, football, or basketball's top 15 in the country again, possibly a 4 or 5 seed. Football's trending in the right direction. It's a good time to be a Razorback fan, especially when you're living in NWA.